Welcome everyone to this community showdown featuring the Beastmen, who shall be led by Odium and Ticity. And today, my friends, he faces off against a Wild Clan Angren pick, who shall be led by Grombrindle. So normally Clan Angren is considered a bit of a meme in multiplayer. However, against the Beastmen, I do think they have a nice little niche. So of course the Beastmen are a relatively low leadership faction. Many of their characters are immune to psychology, but that's really dependent on the frenzy. So as the game goes on, they get a little bit beat up. The frenzy does go away. They then can be terror routed. Now, normally dwarves don't really have any options to get terror routes off, even though High King Thorgrim is quite scary. He does not cause terror, but here in the back, guys, he does have King Lun Ironhammer. So basically, Clan Angren has access to, I believe, it's two different Thanes. There's King Lun, I can't remember the other name. So it's King Lun, another Thane, and then there's a Master Engineer and a Runesmith. So being able to bring like a terror-causing unit against the Beastmen, I think is actually really powerful. The Beastmen do have some direct magic, and also if you pick Clan Angren, sometimes you can trick the Beastmen into bringing like Lore of Death and things that are going to keep them off their summons, because the very typical Beastmen meta is basically just to spam summons. You bring a Cygor summoner and a Manticore summoner, spam those bad boys, and it's really punishing for sure. But if you bring Clan Angren, a lot of times Beastmen players will overreact, bring a Deathcaster. Well, it's not an overreaction, it's a safe reaction for sure. But they'll bring things to deal with the ghostly units, and then sometimes you cannot bring them. It's a little bit, gamey. But nonetheless, I do think bringing one of these ghostly characters here is really strong. He causes terror. He does magic damage, I guess, isn't terribly pertinent in this matchup, but really just having the terror route and somewhat durable character is quite strong. Now for the rest of the Dawi army, let's take a look. Sorry about that, guys. We got Longbeards with great weapons in the front line. These guys, of course, can put up a decent fight against Bestigors. They generally do lose that fight. We have 30, 38, 34 facing off against, let's find some Bestigors, 40, 24, 40. So the real offensive output of the Bestigors is quite nasty. But, they put up a good fight, like I said, and if they have a little bit of support from missiles, so some of these Rangers with great weapons, or Thunders, or perhaps Belagar, or King Lun Ironhammer back here, they can certainly occasionally win those fights, which is quite nice for the Dawi. Now here we have a couple Thunders, or one group of Thunders. We have the Althar's Raiders as well, and Quarrelers, a very interesting build for sure. And historically, this has kind of been like a doomed matchup for the Dawi. It's been one of those matches that's just really, really difficult. So we'll see if this build is capable of pulling out this win here. On top of that, you just have two Bolt Throwers, which is an interesting pick for sure. The Bolt Throwers do decent single target damage against like Chariots and characters like that. So perhaps Gromby brought these bad boys just to snipe out the Bray Shamans and different Chariot characters. And that's really the status quo. Bestigors, single entity Chariots, summons, etc., etc. In the back, a couple Slayers, I think. No, just one Slayer. He does also Miners with Blast and Charges, King Lun Ironhammer, and then last but not least, the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, which he should be hiding in the forest, because oftentimes the Beastmen do bring like a single Cygor to bunker bust you in this matchup, so having them hidden in the forest I think is quite smart. Now for the build of Anticity, pretty scary stuff for sure. He does have some pigs, so he's got Razor Gores, he's got Butchers of Kalkengard, more pigs, which have really good AP values and generally are pretty cost effective in this matchup as both a frontline pushing unit and also a backline harass unit. On top of that, he's got 3 Bestigors in total. Bestigors, like I said, in every matchup, right? You're playing Chaos, you get Chaos Warriors. You're playing Greenskins, you get Black Orcs. They're just AP infantry are typically very, very strong in this matchup. Because if the Dwarves want to contend with the quality of like Bestigors and Black Orcs, Hammerers don't seem to trade terribly cost efficiently in my experience. So it's kind of a tricky place. Like Dwarves can bring Longbeards or Hammers. Longbeards, of course, do well, but they don't necessarily win the fight. But yeah, it's just an awkward place for the Dwarves in general. But yeah, the Bestigor is a really good choice. He does also have a Bray Shaman of Death to kind of respect the Clan Angren pick. So he's got Purple Sun as well as Spirit Leech. And then we have Morkar the Shadow Gabe. I think, no, actually going to be Malagor the Dark Omen. So going partial summoner. Cygor summons obviously are very strong. If he's able to summon the Cygor and it can throw boulders here at Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, that's going to be a huge value train. So I like the build so far here from Anticity. He does also have Ungor Raiders. Raiders, they might seem like a weird pick. You're like, oh, they have low AP. What are they going to do in this matchup? Well, Ungor Raiders are actually pretty good against Slayers. So you just have them shoot Slayers, you have them poke Gyrocopters, and they're really cheap and give you some decent utility on the battlefield. Harpies up in the sky to shut down Gyros, and a couple Gore Herds to flank. So certainly a very scary Beastman army. A little bit different, of course, due to the Clan Angren pick. We'll see if that makes a difference. So here's some of the Bolt Throwers are shooting. It looks like they are going after the Bray Shaman, who did take a single bolt, not too many so far. It looks like for the most part, Anticity has done a pretty good job juking there with the Bray Shaman. And here comes the big old herd. We got the Bestigors, we got the pigs coming around the flank. What's cool about Longbeards is a while back, probably almost like a year now, they changed Longbeards with great weapons to actually get charge defense. So just like regular Longbeards, they can take a charge from some of these pigs and some of these other units. It's only against large foes though, so it's not going to help against Bestigors, who do have a charge bonus of 35, but it's still pretty decent. So Harpies are coming in here, going to be jumping on the Thunders, but they'll be cleaned up very quickly. Or actually going after the Bolt Throwers, interestingly enough, at least on that one unit on the far side. Some of the Miners are trying to clean those guys up, and now the Ungor Raiders have gotten in position and are peppering into the crews here. The Mighty Oathstone now, look at that. That's pretty cost effective. The entire army here is going to get the expert charge defense and extra melee defense to really help them kind of deal with this onslaught. So the pigs and Bestigors are coming in. The Longbeards, of course, with that extra melee defense, are probably going to be able to hold up much more efficiently here against the onslaught of the pigs and Bestigors, who do have that insane charge bonus, of course, but the expert charge defense, not bad. Here in the back, Harpies are attacking the Ulthar's Raiders, but they're actually going down really quickly. Ulthar's Raiders are not slouches in combat. They do have 51 melee defense right now and 29 melee attack with 30 weapons rank, so should be able to chew through the Harpies with a little bit of support. And also the Slayers have been sent in as well to deal with the pigs. So all the initial harass from the Beastmen has been dealt with for the most part. The Harpies are all pushed back, which pretty much always happens. And blasting charges in the front line going on top of the Bestigors, who were winning that frontline engagement. But as soon as the Bestigors get hit with the blasting charges, they took pretty much the full volley to the face. It looks like a situation that the Longbeards might actually be able to win in the long run because, again, Bestigors have Primal Fury. So when their Frenzy gets deactivated, their stats go down in general, now down to 35 melee attack as opposed to 40. Makes a pretty big difference for sure. Nice little Brave Scream going down right there on top of the Ulthar's Raiders, and in the back, the surprise Norgrimling's Ironbreakers are going to be able to probably peel in here and help with this rush, but for the most part, good push here by Anticity. He gets Gore Herds, he gets Razor Gores, and also, we do have a Wild Cygor. So the Cygor has been summoned here by Malagor the Dark Omen. The Cygor is going to be going after the Ironbreakers, doing some decent work, but for the most part, the blasting charge is coming in from the surprise Ironbreakers in the hill, able to force back the Gore Herds, and also doing some decent damage here against the Razor Gores. Over here we do have the throwing axes. It looks like they're throwing into Malagor, and on this side, somehow, some way, the Dwarves are holding. Normally the Dwarves do have a trouble with this rush here, but perhaps the mighty Oathstone from Bellegar really helping out in the situation, and there's also a terror out here, so you can see this is so unusual. You have the Gore Herds being terror routed here by King Lund Ironhammer, and on top of that, he's going to be jumping onto the Butchers of Kalkengard, who will go down rather quickly. They won't be terror routed themselves because they do cause terror, therefore they are immune to terror, but it's still really powerful to push them off. Here, this is a pretty big fight as well. We do have Longbeards and Bestigors and Pigs and Chariots just going fisticuffs here. Bellegar has popped Revenge Incarnate, which makes him a pretty scary combatant for a period of time. It's not active anymore, but I think it's a once per game use, or maybe they changed it. I can't quite remember. You don't see him terribly often. So another Cygor summon is active here, guys, and you can see it is going to be helping the Beastmen out because many aspects of the battle are going very well for the Dawi. You can see there's tons of Dwarf and Infantry, there's Longbeards, there's great weapons here pushing in. The Cygor summon throwing point blank here into the Ulthar's Raiders, and it looks like Malagor and the remnants of some of these troops here should be able to finish off the Ulthar's Raiders. But again, what's really powerful is the fact that King Lun here in the relative late game, or kind of in the mid game more or less, is still healthy. There's been a couple Spirit Leeches on him, but a lot of the Winds of Magic has been used for Cygor summons and Brave Screams, so there's not going to be too many Spirit Leeches here for King Lun Ironhammer, which means this bad boy is going to be causing terror, and in the late game against Beastmen, that is so strong, because Frenzy generally will be worn off at that point. The Mighty Oathstone once again activated, giving 24 melee defense, putting the Longbeards up to a whopping 62. Very, very strong stuff. So those guys are going to be able to hold back the 40 melee attack of the Bestigors quite happily. Grumbling Guard here rocking 72 melee defense for a moment while that was active, basically turning them into the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, which of course is very powerful. So here the Cygor summon is being swarmed by the Longbeards with great weapons. Bounce of power is in the favor of the Dawi for sure. We have some Ungor Raiders in the back, and aside from that, not too much left for the Beastmen coming back. A couple loose Pigs and Squigs. Not pigs, but I just like saying Pigs and Squigs together. It's so much fun. But there's a couple loose pigs coming in, the Razor Gore Herds. Cygor will be disappearing here in a moment. The Cygor is, of course, a summon unit for anyone who is new to the game. Summon units do have an expiration date. It wasn't always that way. Way back in the day, I remember when the Beastmen first came out, actually, as a matter of fact. Morkor the Shadowgave actually had 4 spawn summons. It was insane. So he could summon 2 with his staff and 2 with the Spirit Essence of Chaos, and they didn't disappear. So basically, you just got like 4,000 gold worth of value, and it was insane. But that is going to be the battle as the Terror Route's going down, and the Dwarves pushing are able to crack the Beastmen. So this is a matchup I've always struggled with, and I really didn't think it would be terribly cost-effective to bring the Longbeards, but I suppose with the Mighty Oathstone, a little bit of terror support, and of course the wild blasting charges coming out of the tree line to help them win those fights, they can edge out some of those engagements, and this was a very, very good Beastmen build. Razor Gores, Bestigors, Harpies to counter Gyrocopters, Minotaurs for mobile AP, Raiders to deal with Gyrocopters as well, and also to pepper Slayers, and a little bit of backline harass. Like, this was a really solid Beastmen build, played by a very solid player as well, and by Anticity. But yeah, it's cool to see a build like this work, and, you know, Clan Angrand, I don't know, how would that matchup have gone without King Lun? That is what I'm kind of wondering here. I mean, I feel like King Lun made a pretty big difference on a couple of the flanks, and of course, you know, the Terror Route's always good against Beastmen once their Primal Fury and or their Frenzy goes away. I'm pretty sure most of their units have the Primal Fury, and Frenzy's like more so in the Orcs. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty much the same thing though. But yeah, King Lun Ironhammer was pretty much a G there. Definitely cool seeing the ancestors fight shoulder to shoulder with King Bellegar and well, Well, it doesn't say King Bellegarde. Doesn't it say Bellegarde and Hammer, and then it just says King Lun. Well, I guess he's the king in exile. You know, you guys know how that is. But Longbeards with Garrett weapons definitely did pretty good. I mean, as far as their kills, it wasn't insane, but they held, which was really the important thing. And the Dwarven Missiles were able to sustain towards the late game with good Slayer play and good support here from the Ironbreakers. And of course, King Lun just going deep on those flanks and really terror-routing off a lot of those like chaffy backline harass units, like the Gore Herds and the these other tools. I'm trying to wonder what could have been done a little bit differently. I think maybe holding back the Harpies initially and just kind of saving them for a little bit later. I felt like a lot of the Beastmen harass and initial dive from the Harpies kind of got beat up before the main Beastmen force got there. I think that was a big part of it for sure. Maybe using the Cygor summon and just waiting too could have been smarter as well. I don't really know. Yeah, because if you summon the Cygor, you just kind of sit there, you throw boulders. The bolt throwers like aren't going to do too much. If you hide Malagor, you hide your chariot, you summon a Cygor, and like the bolt throwers can shoot it, but by the time the bolt throwers are able to kill it, it would have desummoned anyways. So maybe you just summon a Cygor, you maximize your value against the Thunders and the Longbeards. You'll probably be able to chunk like 3 or 4 of them down to like half health and just rinse and repeat. Summon a second Cygor, be very patient, just harass with your Raiders. I think that might have been the better way to deal with this. But again, everything in hindsight is easy to say and reflect on. But yeah, I don't really know. It was a really cool build by both players. So very well played to Anticity as well as Grombrindle. This was from one of my King of the Hills, in case you guys are having deja vu. It was a great replay, though. Certainly a very rare side to see the Dwarves actually do well in this matchup. So I wanted to share this as an example to show it is indeed possible. And on that note, hopefully you guys enjoyed the replay. Well played to Anticity and Grombrindle. And we'll see you guys with more content soon. Take care.